This is the Math Map Book Club, where ordinary parents encourage one another to develop an extraordinary appreciation of math. We love what we know and struggle over the unfamiliar. Through weekly conversation and exploration among friends, we can begin to enjoy ideas that seem difficult. Join our book club as we discover how math helps us to know God and to make Him known.
Well, hello, everybody. It is May the 28th, and we are on our 8th week of our summer book club. And thanks again to Shauna for doing such an amazing job last week. And if you are watching this week and didn't watch last week, we really recommend that you go back and watch session 7, all about the companion, and you can feel really equipped. Shauna is going to really help you to feel equipped and prepared to help yourself in the year ahead. So this week, we are going to talk about games from lessons 13 and 14, Celtic chess, and then the ruler and compass activity. So just as a reminder, our summer series is going through the games and activities from the back of the booklets. We are looking at 2 booklets per week. We have invited our mentor tutors, Babs and Jill, to help us. And we'll talk about the published instructions, but then also how can you tailor this for use at home. And of course, every week we're going to end with that Q&A time where you're welcome to answer any questions that have come up for you. They don't have to be about these games. They don't have to be about games at all. You can just ask whatever questions that you would like to get answers to. And if for some reason you're not able to join us live and would still like to have your questions answered, you can email those to the mathmap@classicalconversations.com. So I am going to, at this point, turn it over to Jill, and she is going to walk you through playing Celtic chess.
Okay, hi. The Celtic chess is the screen that you see right now with Kirsty, and Babs and I have been practicing because this is a game that's easier to demonstrate than to try to just explain. But obviously, with our children, the first thing we would want to do is read the directions and to look at the board, and say, doing our basic NAMES, the 5 core habits and the 5 common topic questions, and asking them, what do you see? What lines do you see? Where do you see intersections? Does this remind you of any other kinds of games? If you know it is a game and that there's pieces here, what do you, kind of as we go through, that's always kind of a fun way to start things. So the directions here, I'm trying to enlarge and have 2 screens open. It says that the goal is for both players to create a continuous, not necessarily straight line linking the center of the board with the outside of the board. And so in a moment, we're going to show you kind of what that looks like. So there's a king stone. So that would be kind of like a penny or a larger, maybe different colored piece than the other people's. You might have some black chips and white chips, or buttons, or whatever you choose to play with. You just need 2 different colors, and they need to be small enough to fit on the back of the book in all the intersections. You're going to have one that's going to be the king stone, and that'll be used in the center. It says here to start with 27 pieces each, but in the online or the visual that Babs and I have for you, it is not going to be that many because we're not going to take you through the entire whole game. And by capturing, you're going to capture by trapping the people, the other opponent, in between your spaces. So once all the pieces are placed, then we start moving around. So I know that's sort of like, okay, what is even happening here? But we're going to show you. Okay, so if Kirsty will go to our next slide. There you go. All right. So she's showing you from hers, and then I'm manipulating in the background. And so is Babs. We'll both be doing that. So if I take the purple one that you see down there, I'm going to put it in the center. Hang on, let's see if it took. Did it take? Yes. So that one's going to be like our king stone. And it was just an extra piece. It didn't match either of our colors. We're going to have Babs be orange, and I'm going to be the tealish color. And we would begin to place our pieces until the goal is going to look like this next slide. So Kirsty, if you want to go ahead and show the next one too. So on this next one, you'll see that what we did, we set this up already, is that Babs would have won. And she would have created a path from the center all the way to the outside edge. And so the kingstone always stays that color. It doesn't move. It doesn't become her color if she wins. It doesn't become my color if I win. It just always stays there for any, it's kind of like Babs and I were talking and she said it's like a wild card. And so it's like a wild card. All right. So she made it to the outside edge. And you can see here that it looks like the teal color spent most of its time trying to block her and not minding its own business. And that the orange color focused on winning. So I think there's probably a lot of spiritual talks you can have with your children as you play games and remind them minding your own business, tending your own garden is a good way to actually have some fruit of winning and not lose all your marbles. So if we go to the next one, I'm going to show you a little bit about how to capture. So in this one, I have a couple scenarios set up. If, because at the beginning, we just take turns placing our pieces, okay? And as we're placing our pieces, we aren't trying necessarily to get all the way to the edge, although you might be, but we can capture each other. So you see here the kingstone in the middle, and then I had placed one of mine to the direct right of that. So if it was Babs's turn, she could put her piece next to it. Did it take? And that would have trapped me. It's really hard to, this one thing just doesn't want to go away on my screen. And that means she captured me. So I'm gone from that spot. Ah, okay. This is very interesting. I've never had to do this before. I feel like I'm in Star Trek, like manning the comms or something. Okay, so so she captured me and my piece is now gone. Now, if you look up in the quadrant 2, look at this math terms I'm using. You see that Babs went, or I went, and then Babs went. And now if I want to trap her, I can go on the other side here and I can capture her and I would move her piece. Once the piece is captured, it's gone out of the, whoa, it is gone from the game. I made it an oval instead of capturing it. I'm trying to get it out of the way. I know, isn't this fun? Don't you just love it? I see Babs over there laughing.
I can't help it, like, because it turned into an oval, it just makes
At
me
first,
laugh.
listen, you should have seen what I saw. It was enormous. It covered the entire thing. It was beautiful, giant. Now see, now it's something else. I don't know. This is what happens when you try to work off the live document while someone is showing it in real time. But that's okay. So that got captured. Now, one thing that can't happen is if the two pieces I have here, up in that quadrant 2 or section 2, Babs can move into that safely. So if you see two pieces of the opponent and you move in between them, you actually can't be captured because they are not actively capturing you. Capture must be active where there's an opening on the other side and you contain them. But if there's an opening there and you slide into it, you're safe. Okay?
I feel
So
like that might be
that's the,
something we have to, like, I don't know, asterisk, or like if we're playing at home, like write it on our whiteboard or something, because I feel
yeah.
like that's something I'm gonna forget.
And our children might forget it. You know, we won't forget it if we're the one taking advantage of it, but we might forget it if
Right.
someone moves in between us and we're like, oh, no, I captured. No, you didn't. They just slid in. They just slid in. So next we have a blank board and Babs and I are gonna play on the blank board and you're gonna get to watch us. So I already put the kingstone in position and Babs, if you want to go first.
Okay.
I know.
See, my whole thing, you were talking about like minding your own business or whatever, but I feel like I just mind my own business because I don't have a strategy. Like I'm like, well, what's the strategy that's going to make me win? I just don't know.
Well, if everybody minds their own business, then whoever goes first will probably win because they'll get to the outside edge first. I'm guessing you could really throw some fun in here and add a third or fourth color and, really make it exciting. So, okay. Babs went, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I can't see the screen that Kirsty's showing because whenever I try to look at only that, it is super tiny on my screen, and then it makes it hard to move my piece without turning it into a giant oval. So, okay.
So why, okay, this is probably not a great question, but why would you not want to start in the middle? Is there a
Well, because
strategy to
in
that?
all our practice times, whenever I started here, you immediately captured me.
Oh, okay. So there is a strategy.
So
Okay. See, again,
I
I
was
don't know
like,
your strategy.
let me not jump right there because then she'll capture me right off the bat. Of course, you could move, then I can move in again because it's a safe space once I've been
Hmm.
captured there.
And that's a good reminder that you can still capture in this, because I feel like in my mind, I'm thinking of checkers, like I'm thinking of the straight lines, but you can still
Right.
capture on the circle because they're still
Yes,
beside you. So,
absolutely. You can capture any two intersections that it doesn't matter. It can be in like a radius sort of move or in one of the concentric circles. Okay, and now I can't capture Babs now because you can't capture two people. All right, but I can block her. But if I block her, I run the risk of um,
being
getting
captured.
captured. So I'm going to do that. That way, I'm still blocking her direction there, but again, not minding my business. But I am. But if I go right next to her, she can capture me.
All right. I can't see it on Chrissy's screen yet. I can see it on,
Oh, really? It didn't go? It
I
didn't
can
take
see
it?
it on the live document, but I don't see it on Kirsty's screen.
Oh,
Oh,
well, let me. Is it there? Oh, why didn't it go? Is
I
it
can
the?
see it on the live screen that we're playing
Yeah, me
on.
too. All right. Did it take it yet? Why? All right, let me move it. I'll try a different one. Maybe something's wrong with that one. Did it take it now?
I don't see anything.
That is ridiculous. Okay. Well, maybe I am not supposed to go there. It's not fun
Okay.
when you
It
Oh,
showed
can't see
up.
them. Oh, good. Yay. You moved me there. Thank you, Babs.
see, now I don't see it on our, there must be a delay because I don't see it on our live document. Our live document looks different than what we're seeing on the screen.
Not now. Now I'm seeing it the same. Okay, so
Okay.
I see your, oh goodness, it's just all over the place. Sorry, guys. We're trying. We thought this was
So
going to be so brilliant.
can
You
you
were going
put
to get to see it.
can you decide to put as many of these as you want on the board?
Well, we take turns back and forth putting
Right.
one at a time. Now you can tell your kids, you can say, we're not even concerned about capturing. Let's just get all our pieces on the board and then we'll start moving and capturing. So you could do that, but you would want them to not then be trying to get into a straight line necessarily. You could even decide where you want them. You could tell the kids, I'm putting all the pieces on the board sort of fairly, and then we'll start to move. So you could do some things so that they don't have to do this part of the process. So
So
let's see.
I put something on there like a minute ago and it still won't update.
Well, I don't know what to say about that.
What if I do this? What if I,
Oh, we're
oh,
now on a whole new slide. Oh, there we are. Back. Okay.
but it still didn't capture my thing. I
No,
was
it
going to
didn't
see if,
capture it.
what if I do this?
Where do you want it, Babs? Oh, now it showed
Oh,
up.
it just did it. Okay. So it's just a little delayed.
Okay. All right. We both have 3. It's your turn, Babs.
Oh, well, I'm just gonna keep going. Oh, do I want to do that? Yeah, I can do that. All right, let's see if you can see it.
So I think it's interesting that you're going in a circle there.
Well, I'm trying to get away from you, and then I'm gonna go down the line. Well, I shouldn't told you that because I just told you my strategy, but
Tell your
see, I told
strategy
you I'm
to
terrible
your
with
friends.
strategy. See, it's like
But both of us have gone
I
and
have
it isn't
3.
showing yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But we don't have to spend the whole time with you just staring at this and going, it isn't showing. We don't know what they're talking about. Do you have any questions based on what you see? And we could even go back and show previous game boards. What are your thoughts?
So I have a question on that, like where the orange is on the y-axis north of the, like on the second concentric circle. Can it take the green to the right that's going to be on the x-axis, or does it have to move one point at a time?
It,
Like,
it would have to be directly next to it and capture it based on intersections.
okay, so it can't just move along that line and go capture the green just because there's nothing in the way.
Correct. It would have
Okay.
to be in the intersection next to it. And then like
Oh,
if there's this and there's something in the middle, it has to be right next to each other, like spaces. It has to be the space, only it's not spaces, it's, intersections.
The intersections. Okay.
Right. That's what we think based on what we saw. So that's where we are now, and it has caught up to us. But so Babs is, oh no, she's got another one out there. I missed a turn. I'm going to block her. I'm going to block her. Oh, you're so sneaky and smart. Okay, I'll just do this one since that's what it looks like you're doing. All right, and because you told me that's what you were doing. So it'll catch
yeah.
up in a
See,
minute.
now I'm gonna have to go a different way because yeah, it's like it takes like 5 minutes for it to like
It
update
really
for them to
does.
see what we're seeing.
Well, we can go back and show previous slides, but do you all see what's happening? Do you feel like after seeing how to capture and recognizing that you're trying to get from the center out, that you would be able to at least play around and with trial and error, figure some things out with the game?
My other question
Oh,
is
you're just
about,
putting pieces out there.
you
She's
start in the
skipping
center
all
and
my
work,
turns.
you start in the center and work your way out, Jill. And so, but Bab started in that very first circle, inner circle, and then you started 3 circles out. So how, like, what is there a, you can't be any further out, or could you have started way out here? Like
I could
how?
have started, you can start anywhere. You can start from the outside and work in. You can start
Oh, okay.
anywhere on the board you want. And if you were to just get all your pieces out there and really not be trying to get to the outside, see, Babs just kept going. Do you see that? She won without me knowing what was happening. Um, she just kept playing. Again, minding her own business and winning the game. So, but if we, if we just put all our pieces out there and don't worry about trying to capture while we get them, then once all the pieces are out there, you can move. And then you would move one space at a time or one intersection at a time, up, over, forward, backward, whatever you want to do. You can't, you can only skip. So you can't bump them out of the way. If you're blocked, you're blocked. You just have to stay there. You can jump them and into an empty intersection and capture them, and that's the only way you can get around. But you can't, if it's blocked, unless they move, that's just as far as you can go. So it's not the simplest of games, and you can find some on YouTube, little videos and demonstrations, but there are a lot of different boards for Celtic chess. Some are not polar like this, some are squared. And so to find the one that looks like this actually it said a different name, like Fidel or something like that, which was a type of Celtic chess. So there's evidently a couple different types. So if you just look up Celtic chess, look around till you see one that has a board that looks like this if you want to use the back of your book. Okay. All right. So thank you though for your patience as you watched us play around with it. Were there any other questions on it?
I think it would be cool to play teams and see how, like, will it take long? I'm assuming it would take longer for you to get to the outside if you have like four people playing or
Oh yeah,
or
I
two
think so.
teams or something.
And
Because when
some
you
of
have
the I
teams, you have to agree on where to
you
move
do.
it. But four different ones, like four, you know how you're talking about four different colors. I think
Yeah.
that would be interesting to see how fast somebody could get to the edge if you have four people trying to block you.
Oh yeah. And this actually would be kind of a neat park or beach game because you could draw it in the sand and use shells or rocks or something and just kind of play around. And it wouldn't really matter. We do have a slide with just a couple ideas that we thought of. One was that you could play in teams. So with our younger children, that might be a little bit of advanced strategy for some of the youngest children that might be around us. And so if we let them pair up with mom or dad or an older brother, older sister, so that we can point out now we could go here, you know, kind of like you do with any card game that you're teaching someone young how to play. They could also watch the older ones play, and they could be in charge of finding places to skip, you know, or finding places to sneak in that are safe. So they could do some things like that. And like we talked about earlier, you could just, you as the grown up could put all the pieces out there or a bunch of the pieces out there to get it started so that it doesn't take so long with that initial back and forth and capturing. Um, and you could always change the rules to whatever you want it to be, you know, since you're not playing in a national competition.
All right. Thanks, Jill. I was glad you got that game to figure out. The mine was easy. So on the back of lesson 14, it's really an activity. And you can see it's called ruler and compass. And the instructions are simply to use a separate piece of paper and use your construction tools to duplicate the drawings. So as I was thinking about that, I realized that a lot of these, if you look at the foreset of lesson 14, a lot of those are sort of these geometric drawings, so different ways that you can use your compass or a straight edge in order to create different illusions or different drawings. So this is on our screen here is an example from one of our page fours, instructing the students to draw a mandala. And so you can see some similarities between the shapes here, right? If you look here at these, you can see where some of these ideas over here may have come from, right? So I could have, right, drawn my circles a little bit differently, but you get the same idea. This one only has four circles, right? So like it's only this part here. So if my student has perhaps looked at some of these and then you choose, right, I'm going to just choose some of these uh, and erase the rest. So that may be a way to help your students see how to create these on their own. Um, but I also think that this is a page that, especially as we're going into our winter break, especially as we're preparing for Blue Books, that there's a restfulness to this page. So even though those figures maybe look complex, like they've got a lot of different parts, it I think can just be very restful because first of all, our students can color, right? So whether that's our young students or our older students, um, there's a lot to be said for coloring, right? We see that even just with the abundance of adult coloring books, that if it's a stressful time for your older students getting ready for Blue Books, this is a way that maybe you give them an activity that's going to be less stressful, that's going to be calming to them. But they're still practicing those fine motor skills, right? That eye-hand coordination, that attentiveness, right? That we're in coloring these in. For our younger students, again, just that idea of right, coloring gets them involved in being attentive and practicing those skills. The next thing that you could do that's a little bit more than coloring is tracing. And when I think of tracing, I just mean literally just going over that with a pencil or a marker, right? So just going over those lines. And then the next step would be to use your tools. So can you set your compass up to create these arcs, or use your ruler or your straight edge to create the straight lines? So again, that way we're getting to practice using those tools, um, but in the context of these images. I would say the most challenging activity may be to recreate these on your own, because you've got to really, right? So as I pointed out here, this one has these 4 petals in the middle, right? And this one has, right, 6 petals. So you've got to kind of be able to think through how would I get those 4 petals, right? How would I draw this? How would I do this to get these petals um, over here? So there's a lot of thinking that a student would have to do in order to recreate these exactly. Um, but that, so that's a challenging activity that some students may really enjoy, and other students maybe just challenge them with recreating 1 or 2 of those. And then the last thing that I think some of our students might enjoy is taking this as an inspiration to create their own original works, right? So what kinds of figures could you draw, right? And how could you color them to make them your own? And it made me think, I have a friend who gave me a beautiful cross when we got married, and she used tape, right? So to create this sort of stained glass look, right, on some of these, um, she used tape to make those straight lines, and then she painted in between. So you could even give your students, they don't necessarily have to do this just with paper and pencil, right? You could say, okay, well, hey, let's go to the paint your own pottery place. And can you create one of these, right? So little strips of tape to create these different divisions. So there's a lot of ways we can take this idea and expand on it for our students. Um, so again, from maybe the most simple is to color, then using these to practice with our tools. That's our goal in these, is just practicing with our tools, becoming confident in using our straight edge and our compass. And then recreating these would take some familiarity with all of these different types of drawing skills, right? How could I create this? Where, right? So for example, if you look at this one here, right? We see that we've got some concentric circles. So I'm going to need to have a center out here that's going to let me draw these concentric circles. So there's a lot there for a student to have to think through in order to actually recreate these, that would demonstrate that they really are familiar with not only their tools, but what are the relationships between the different shapes that are here. And then again, right, being rhetorical is that idea of creating your own original work. So how can you take this inspiration and these tools and create a work of your own? So that's a pretty quick talk through this activity, because it is a fairly, I think, straightforward activity. But does anybody have anything they want to share or questions they'd like to ask about this?
Well, I think that for younger children too, an idea would be if you have just lids or circles and you look at what would the overlay be, what would you have to do to create that? I really like how in that bottom one you said, notice that there are concentric circles. So what does that mean? I think that thinking process for younger children could be really helpful, because even 7th graders that I've worked with have had a really hard time with the compass. So if we teach them how to notice what to do and start to play with the compass, even when they're really young, maybe we will have 7th graders who aren't having to learn it for the first time. So I really like that conversation. And I have the little round, clear game piece discs. So for the one kind of to the right of the one in the middle, where all the circles are kind of around, looks like kind of a hubcap. What, yes, that one. If they overlaid some of those circles, they might be able to move them in and out and see kind of what did it take to replicate that. I think this, I never thought of this quite as peaceful as the way you, that's usually the way it is when you speak, though.
Oh, you're too kind. Yeah, that's a great one. That one you pointed out, because there's a lot of things we could talk about there with the internally tangent circles and the intersections. Um, and I was thinking too that if you have a copier at home, you could, right, blow these up for younger students, right, so that they're bigger and get several different activity pages out of them. You could, these might be great things to work on to include in your lesson 29 booklet. You could talk about colors. So if you have students who are experimenting with colors, right? If I was to color, right, like this one, if I said, well, this is going to be yellow and this one's going to be blue, right? Notice that where they overlapped, I wish it stayed green. It showed green and then it popped out, right? This is going to be green. And so what would happen if I was red on the other side, right? So as I draw over this one,
You'll be orange.
it'd be orange. So there's a way, right? So this is a great, a great activity to play with those colors with our students, right? What would happen? Especially if you were, you could even take these and, put these in a sheet protector and then maybe use some paints, right? And that way you could actually see how those colors mix, if you were doing that with the paints.
And I
That's a
think
great,
that this is, I was just going to say, I think this is great to even thinking through for challenge two when it gets there, that with all the art and the color wheel and like seeing how all the colors are next to each other and how they blend together, that would be a good tie-in
Mhm.
to the art.
and we could talk about sets too, right? Because some of these have intersections and some of them don't, right? But the ones that do, right, you can talk about, okay, well, this is an intersection of all my colors. So what would happen there, right? This is an intersection of just two of my colors. What would happen there? So being able to play with that, um, using them kind of like an Euler diagram, right?
I had an idea of maybe recreate one of the image, not maybe not the antelope, but like using perler beads. Then that could actually have them calculate how many beads that takes to the widest part and how many beads that it actually changes when it gets to the narrow part. That would be
I like,
probably for older kids.
well, that's a great idea.
That brings
You
back
could
so many memories of the perler beads. Now, aren't they the ones that you once you have your design together, you put like wax paper and then you iron it and then they melt
Mhm.
all together? Oh,
Yeah,
my boys loved making all kinds of different shapes. That's a great idea.
yeah.
I think the symmetry of some of these is super cool. And if you folded patty paper in half and let them use their tools, then when they open it up, they could trace, or they could leave it folded, but somehow flip it over and trace the other side before they try to free-handed be um, precise in their did I just say in their symmetry? But that would be kind of cool too, or maybe even using graph paper and doing some of these would help them keep their lines angled properly to work on symmetry.
Well, I love your idea of the patty paper, right? Because then I could actually trace over, right? And so that's another way that not just tracing on the page itself, but tracing onto patty paper, and using my tools. So, and I think there's a great conversation to talk about which ones of these have true symmetry, right? That heart looks like it has symmetry, but it doesn't really once we look at the inside. Um, and the one in the bottom left looks like it should have some symmetry, but it doesn't have it doesn't have reflectional symmetry, does it? But it does have radial symmetry. And so even though that's a lesson 18, these are maybe some things to pull back when you get to lesson 18 and you want to talk about symmetry. These are some things you could take a look at and say, okay, well, when we're talking about rotational symmetry, right? These are all going to have different rotational symmetries that we could explore. We're talking about that reflectional symmetry as well. So yeah, I think that's a great idea.
This is way off of this particular thing, but when you were talking about being restful and coloring the different pieces, I would not substitute with the activity, but you showed us something one time about crumpling up a piece of paper and opening it up and tracing the lines that formed. And when all the little lines inside the heart and inside the bear and the other things reminded me of that too.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because we think about things like that that are so simple and we don't necessarily think of them as being instructional, but they can be, right? That all of those activities together are going to help to build our children into the adults that they need to be. And God can teach us through all of those things. And it's just as important for us to develop our skills and our attentiveness, right? When we think about classical learning and we think that what we're really trying to do for our students is to teach them how to learn, we're really emphasizing these skills of learning over the content, right? Not that the content doesn't matter, but if all we learn is content and not how to learn it, right, then we're never getting out of that grammar stage. And so we really want to emphasize for our children, right, those skills of learning. So being attentive, right, expressing ourselves, right? This is a great expression. Right, you could do some storytelling here, right? And if you think about storytelling, always has that sort of the beginning, middle, and end, right? So tell a story about these elements, right? Or tell a story about how you might draw them, or what might this represent? What does it make you think of, right? So there's some storytelling. So those names, right, we may not be memorizing here, but those other things that we might want to look at, we can certainly look at here: naming and attending and expressing and storytelling. We can talk about comparison, right? We oftentimes think of comparison as that dialectic skill, but here's a great thing to talk about with our younger students, right? Compare the top 6 with the bottom 6, right? What's different? We could compare the heart to the butterfly, right? Which one has symmetry and which one doesn't? Um, and so there's a lot of things we can compare, right? What are some things that we can, right? Going back to naming, right? We can name circles, we can name intersections. So all of those different skills that we're looking at developing on our children, we can do with this activity. And I think it's a good reminder to all of us that it's, right, this may not be about learning some great math concept, but it's about practicing those tools and about developing those skills of learning that we're going to apply to learning all those math skills, right? That if our children can become more confident with the straight edge and the patty paper and the compass, they're going to be able to discover mathematical truths as they do the constructions. So, and it's okay for it just to be something that's fun and restful too.
Kristen found there's kind of another activity on page 16 of booklet 14, that's like you're creating like a Fibonacci pattern and the golden ratio. So it kind of looks like a game. I mean, it's an activity. So I mean, it's just another thing, to use as a good activity that's not just worksheet, right? You're actually doing something and having an activity.
I also think, for those little kids too, thinking about, count. So look at this heart. We normally think of a heart that has rounded areas, but this particular heart is composed of triangles. How many triangles can you count? Or how many triangles do you see? Or, what are the shapes that you see so that the little ones can even start to attend and look at actual shapes.
If you think about those as stained glass, this may be one, it's not available yet, and I'm pretty sure that I'm right. So I may be giving a little bit of a like preview that I'm not supposed to. But once you have your hands on the new Latin curriculum, you're going to be able to make some connections to the covers for the Latin curriculum with some beautiful stained glass images. Um, so that may be another way to help your students connect, right? What they're doing here to other their strands that we're looking at, right? Of course, the art and the going and looking up some images of stained glass to give them some ideas.
That is cool. Thank you for that information.
Yeah, I may be a little bit jealous of Kathy Deniji because she's, been working diligently on that, and I know she's had a lot of fun. So, I mean, I love math. I don't wish I wasn't doing this, but when you see somebody else having fun with their content, you're like, oh, I want to go play over there too. So something for everybody to look forward to.
And I think, isn't this part when foundations are doing their drawing, don't they do, oh, they do it first, the first 6 weeks. So
Yes.
so this would like be kind of a reminder back to, you remember what we did the first 6 weeks. Here's some more drawing. Here's another way to look at drawing, and what are can you see oils in this particular, this particular lesson?
I have a technical question. Where can you find a good compass? All the compasses that I've gotten, maybe I'm looking in the wrong place, are kind of flimsy and not friendly, not user friendly.
So yeah, that's a really great question. And I really wish I had a good answer for you. Um, we at the Math Map offices tend to, let me just see if I have one handy. I did have one, and I'm not sure where I ended up putting it. But we have we like the ones that have like a wheel in the middle. Let me see if I can find an image real quick. I'm going to stop sharing for a
Are they called
moment.
this? Aren't they called the safety compass or something? Because
Well,
I think
there's
that's what I bought from.
there is a safety compass, and I like let me
Is it the Stadler compass, the
yes, there's
STAEDLER? Blick art supply stores and online have Dick Blick's art supply was in Savannah. They have online things. They have quite a few different compass choices.
okay, so you would think at this point that if I just did a search that I would be able to find it, but something like this one, I'm going to put the image in the chat if I can. So this one here that's got like that wheel in the middle tends to like hold it a little bit more. I like the one that Babs posted, that safety compass. I like that because especially for little fingers, because you can hold it. You don't trying to do two things. You can actually use both hands to do that. So just a couple of different options. It is something that I think, generally speaking, is worth spending a little bit more on. That you generally get what you pay for. So if you get a cheap one, I wouldn't go plastic. I would definitely try to go metal.
About costs like $20. Is that too much? Is that a good amount, or is
I,
that not enough?
I mean, I think you probably can get a decent one, and and $7 to $10 on Amazon. Um, but again, I don't have one that I'm like, yes, this is the best one out there. So, I mean, the other fun thing that you could do, and maybe not not in week 14 if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, especially if you're up north. But the other thing that would be fun to do is to go outside and recreate some of these outside. And I think it's fun to take a, big piece of string with your kids and actually have them move. So you have one of them be the pivot point, right? Or you have a stake like you might get for like a dog's run out or something. So you get a stake and have them actually move. And so you could, go outside and create some of these patterns. And if you are on the beach, wouldn't that be a fun thing to do on the beach? All you need is a nice long piece of string and then see which of these you could make on the beach, with your kids just drawing in the sand and make them big, right? So go to the beach before the public school kids get there, and then you can make nice, big drawings in the sand. So just a reminder, right, of all the ways that we are here to help you. And next week we will be looking at lessons 15 and 16. So we'll be looking at our bridge there from the fall to the spring. And then, as always, we have some time for questions. So does anybody have any other questions that haven't been answered yet? Well, I am going to just invite you, if you want to ask questions, I'll hang out for another minute or two, but if not, have a great week and enjoy. Hopefully you're going to get some sunshine. We've had a really rainy few days here. It's been very cool. That has not really felt like the start of summer. But hopefully we're going to get some sunshine back here later this week, and feel like summer may be starting. So wherever you are, I hope that you're having a great week and enjoying a restful season in your homeschool. And I look forward to seeing you next week.